Welcome to FPL Selection. Today we'll take a look at my first drafts and strategy at a Gameweek 1, but first a quick look at the changes that have been made to the game for this season. Just before I get started, a quick thank you to everyone for watching and subscribing last season, and welcome to any new viewers for this season. We're still growing and improving, so feel free to leave a comment with any feedback, no matter how big or small, positive or negative. All of it helps a lot just to make improvements and keep building things. We're aiming to put out 2 videos for each game week this season. We'll do the usual team selection videos and follow a similar format that we were doing before, but the plan is to put out something earlier in the week, some sort of reaction to the previous games, early thoughts, what we're thinking for the game weeks ahead. So if there's anything in particular you'd like to see, or any other content you might be interested in, just let me know in the comments. Thanks. So just a quick summary for those who haven't seen the changes made for FPL this year. There have been a few tweaks to the game. It's probably going to have quite a big effect on the strategy and should increase the pool of players to pick from. So the big one really is defensive contributions. So defenders that reach a total of 10 clearances, blocks, interceptions and tackles, or CBIT as it's referred to on the FPL website, and they'll receive 2 points. And then midfielders and forwards, they'll need a total of 12 defensive contributions to get their 2 points, but ball recoveries will also be counted for their total. So hopefully that should make centre backs and defensive midfielders a lot more viable this season. Some of the examples they showed on the FPL website, they had Tarkowski, I think it was 44 points more he would have scored last season if the Defcons were in play. Caicedo was 42 extra points, and then Murillo was an extra 38 points. So that works out somewhere between sort of 25 to 50% more points of their season totals. So it's quite a big difference. You can see by the pricing that they've certainly increased the price of a lot of the defenders that would have done well last season. So should make the game very interesting this year, a lot more players to choose from. Then second up is the simplification of assists. So basically there's less restrictions on what actions they will deem as a fantasy assist. So for example, if a goal scorer receives the ball inside the box, has only had 1 defensive touch from the original pass, cross or touch from their teammate, the assist will be given, even if they didn't intend to give the ball to the goal scoring player. And the only exception would be if the defensive touch is a pass, for example like a loose back pass. So a good example of this new rule would be a corner or a cross that's aimed into the near post, takes 1 deflection off a defender, and then arrives to an attacking player at the back post to score. The fantasy assist would be given even though the original cross wasn't intended for the player who scored. This rule though doesn't apply if the goal scorer receives the ball outside the box. The assist will still be given to players who win a penalty or free kick that is converted, and the handball rule is simplified, so if a player makes an attacking action or touch that leads to a handball, it will be deemed a fantasy assist. And next up, there'll be double the number of chips, so there'll be a wildcard, free hit, bench boost and triple captain that must be used at some point before the game week 19 deadline at the end of 2025. And then everybody will receive a second set of chips to be used from game week 20 onwards. And there'll be no assistant manager chip this season. In addition to the chips, there'll be extra transfers given to cover the Africa Cup of Nations. So in game week 16, everyone will have their free transfer total topped up to 5. That will just allow for changes to be made when players start to leave to go to the AFCON. And they will carry over as normal if you don't use all of them in that first week. And finally, the bonus point system, or BPS, has been adjusted this season. So you can go to the FPL website and see the full details because there's quite a bit there that's not really that interesting, but just as a quick summary, the penalties have been reduced in value and at equal scores for all players now. The goalkeepers get more for saving shots inside the box, but slightly less for penalty saves. Goal line clearances have tripled in value, and the tackling metric has been simplified to just give BPS for tackles 1. So again, not that interesting to everybody, but you can see there might be some differences there between, certainly the strikers might lose out a little bit, and potentially some of the goalkeepers and some of the sort of heavier tacklers might, get a bit of a higher bonus. So something to look out for anyway. Now let's move ahead and look at my first drafts for this season. So this first draft is what I would sort of describe as a slightly longer term draft. When I say longer term, I'm only sort of looking at maybe 6 weeks. I do like to wildcard early because I feel like you don't know that much at the start of the season. There's obviously, new players to the league. A lot of teams will have maybe changed tactics, different managers. There's just so many unknowns. It's going to be very difficult to get your team spot on in the first week. So I always like to sort of be ready to, wildcard at any point if I've got it wrong, because, chances are quite high that you're going to get several picks wrong at the start. So I think it's good to try and pick those players that are going to play, they're going to get good minutes, and they've got some good history to sort of back up that, they're going to be a good asset to have. And, if you've got that wild card in your back pocket, again, if you get anything wrong, you can always change it. So for me, this first draft, I've got Kelleher in goal. To be honest, I'm not really that excited by any of the 4.5 goalkeepers. So I just like that fixture against Forest first up. I think Forest haven't scored many goals in pre-season, and they're always sort of, they're not the team to score lots and lots of goals, so there's a chance of a clean sheet there if Brentford can set it properly. And yeah, I think that's something I'm going to look at a little bit more over the next coming days, but Kelleher's in for now anyway. But I certainly don't think I'll be spending more than 4.5. And then Munoz is probably my first pick this season. It's just so fun to watch. Lots of ways to score points. I basically see him as he's just an attacker for Crystal Palace, and he just has the added bonus of getting the clean sheet points. So when you look at it like that, you're not really looking at defensive fixtures. I just want to play him for the 38 weeks pretty much. And I feel like Palace are one of those teams that their away record was very good last season, and they always do well against the better teams because they like to play on the counter. So I think he's just a perfect player to have for sort of every game, because you never know when those big points hauls are going to come. So he's definitely in for me. Then Porro, it's basically a good opening fixture there, Burnley at home. I think Spurs should improve defensively with Thomas Frank in charge. I mean, they couldn't get much worse than last year with how open they were. And he should be on most set pieces, Maddison out for most of the season. And he's always very attacking, and there's just many routes to points. So yeah, I like Porro in at the start. And I've got Diouf from West Ham. Good opening fixture again, Sunderland away. It's very attacking from the bits and pieces I've seen from pre-season. He's playing left wing back, and he's putting some great crosses. And obviously they've got Fulkrug fit now as well, and he seems to basically be playing as a poacher in the middle, and he'll certainly get on the end of any decent crosses that come in. I think West Ham should be much better defensively now. Potter's sort of had 6 months now to set up his system and the way he wants to play, and bring in a few players that he likes. So yeah, I'm quite optimistic for West Ham this season, and I think Diouf, just seeing the little bits I've seen of how attacking he is, I think he's going to be a nice one to have for the first few games. Might get a few attacking returns there. Then Salah, pretty obvious, I think, for the start of the season. They got a home fixture against Bournemouth, who have had most of their defence sold basically, and I can see they're trying to bring in some new players, but it's going to be a bit late in the day to sort of put something together that's going to be, able to stop Liverpool really, I would have thought. Obviously Salah's got the history of scoring well in the opening weekend, and scoring well pretty much every season he's been at Liverpool. He's had the full rest over the summer. He's a nice reliable captain for week 1. I did see the Community Shield, and I'm not too worried about it. I think he's had some bad games against Palace before, having sort of the wing back there that just sits. Mitchell generally is just going to not get too far forward and kept Salah out of the game really. And then the other thing is with Salah, I think being the most expensive player, it's better to have him at the start and then you can always come down to any other player you want if, he doesn't have such a great start to the season. Whereas if I did try to go without him, it's very difficult to get him in. You're going to have to make several transfers probably to get him into your team. So, yeah, I think I'll play safe at the start and go with Salah. And Cole Palmer, I'm just repeating something I kept saying for about half of last season when he wasn't playing so well, which was, he is a top player. He's definitely going to have a point to prove, that poor end to last season. But the thing is, he's involved in all of Chelsea's goals generally, whether he's creating or getting on the end of things and scoring. He's on the penalties. They've brought in some better players now. You can see the link up with João Pedro, even Esteval when he's played. I think Chelsea are going to go up another level this year. They certainly improved a lot towards the end of last season. They also won the Club World Cup. Just think Palmer's one you've just got to have in your team with the good fixtures. And yeah, be expecting plenty from him this year. Then I've gone for Wirtz for the double Liverpool attack. Obviously, I think good opening fixture there with Bournemouth, not really being ready for the start of the season. He's a top player, double figures in goals and assists for the last 2 years. Now you put him into a team with better players, I think those figures can probably only go up really. And to be honest, I could have picked any of the Liverpool attackers for a double up, but I just think Wirtz has the most route to points. He's also on set pieces as well. So I think he's just a nice one to own for the first couple of weeks. And, have that double Liverpool attack. I think he's going to be quite popular. So, again, better to have him at the start and get rid of him than, start chasing if he does go off really early. Especially 8.5 million seems like a decent price for him. Then Minter is in as well. I think, for me, he's the player I think is going to make the biggest step up this year. I actually thought it was going to come last year because just seeing little bits of him in the pre-season last year and a few games early in the season, you can just see he's got that real pace, his dribbling, he's just so difficult to stop with that acceleration and great touch, and he can certainly finish when he gets in the positions, but I think he's just one of them that once his decision making gets better, he's only going to, improve all of his numbers. So, yeah, I just think I like the fixture against Fulham, especially with Robinson out injured. Also looks like Sessegnon might be out injured too, so Sessegnon's not really a proper left back either, so even against him I'd say Minter's going to have a fairly good day there. So I think, yeah, it's a nice one for 6 million just for a couple of weeks. And then I've got Saka, been looking very sharp in pre-season. Looks like he's over his injury issues from the second half of last year. For me, he's a 38 game week player. I said that probably on about 20 videos last year till he got injured. So yeah, I like to own him for the whole season because he can score against anybody. And yeah, he's just very, very consistent when he's fully fit and playing every week. And I think adding Gyökeres there as a proper goal scorer, Saka puts in some great crosses, whether it's sort of curling in on his left foot towards the back post or standing them up on his right foot when he gets to the byline. Just think Gyökeres is going to have a field day, just mopping up all those chances. Could increase Saka's numbers a lot this season. Then up front, I've got Mateta. I've talked about my history with him before and how he's ruined 2 seasons ago, ruined my season. So I've always kept a close eye on him. He's a very streaky player. He certainly looked good in pre-season so far. Obviously scored against Liverpool the other day. He's had a proper pre-season and it looks like he's on penalties now ahead of Eze. So I think, yeah, there's a good chance he's going to have a very fast start to the season. I think Chelsea might not be quite ready. They might be alright because they've not had many weeks off, but they haven't had a full pre-season to prepare. So I think Palace are going to be ready to go and they're going to cause them some issues. And like I said earlier, I think playing on the counter against a better side probably suits Palace away from home as well. So yeah, I think it's a nice fixture for Mateta, and yeah, I'm pretty confident on that pick. And I've got Fulkrug at West Ham. Sunderland away is obviously a nice opening fixture for him. He's a proper poacher, and looking at the bits I've seen from pre-season, he's sort of been asked to stay in the box. He's playing sort of a front two with Bowen, but he's the one that sort of sits in the box there to finish the chances. He's definitely got a point to prove after obviously being injured for most of last year. But yeah, I think he's one of them that is, if he can stay fit, he should clock up a few goals this season, especially in the position he's playing. Good players around him. At 6 million seems like a decent price to have a punt at the start of the season. Then the bench, there is nothing really to talk about. It's just the lowest prices with sort of the players at the moment that are looking like they've got the best chance of getting some decent minutes. But obviously that could change up till the deadline, so yeah, I won't go into too much there. But yeah, basically just putting the maximum value into the 11 at the moment. Again, I'm sort of thinking of wildcard quite early anyway, so it's unlikely I'm going to be too worried about that bench for the short term anyway. Then moving on to draft 2. Now draft 2, the idea is that I would be bench boosting in Gameweek 1, and this is my sort of favoured strategy at the moment. I actually did it last season in Gameweek 1, and actually I had Barco like many people and got 0 points. But I did have a decent score. I think I got 12 points in the end, which obviously is, nothing crazy, but it was just nice to get it out of the way at the start and not have to worry about it, because I think sometimes the bench boost, you start preparing for it for several weeks. You don't buy certain players because they're not going to suit your bench boost. You have to sort of spread the budget around a little bit more. And what I liked about it last year was I didn't have to think about that. I could then basically put a really cheap bench in for most of the first half of the season and just concentrate on the 11 and the first sub. So I like the idea of doing that again this year, especially with the double chips. So for me, I think it's the most likely strategy I'm going to go with. So as you can see at the moment, it's basically the same team as the first draft. I think I've got sort of 10 players roughly locked in, or very close to being locked in now. The only difference is obviously there's no Saka, and the idea would be to free hit in game week 2, so I can get the Arsenal players in for the Leeds fixture, and I'd probably get Bournemouth in against Wolves, and I think there's a couple of other good fixtures, but mainly Arsenal, because then I can get Saka as captain. And then I'll revert back in game week 3, and either I'll be happy with what I've got, or I can wildcard in game week 3 and just be very aggressive on these first 2 weeks, which I think is probably the way it's going to go at the moment, just looking at the fixtures. But again, there's so many unknowns, but I like having that opportunity to just be able to react to everything early. So I'm pretty much going to have 3 different teams for the first 3 weeks, and then hopefully 3 weeks, 2 to 3, might wildcard in 4, so maybe 3 weeks of data. But either way, it'll just give you a chance to assess everything, and you can sort of fix any problems that you've, any mistakes you've made early on. So yeah, as I said, no Saka in this draft. The only addition to the 11 there would be Barry. He's got Leeds away. Now, obviously it's a nice opening fixture. I've seen a bit of video of him from Villarreal, and he's sort of a big, awkward player. Makes good runs in behind, so he's the type of player that's just going to be really difficult to play against. And you're probably looking at the way Leeds are going to line up, he's probably going to be up against Rodon and Strauch, who probably championship level defenders at best. So I think he should get some joy there against them. Just looking at the bits and pieces I've seen of him, yeah, I think it's a nice little punt for the first week. Then for the bench boost, at the minute, it's not really decided anything. I've got Verbruggen there as the goalkeeper, 4.5, but yeah, there's quite a few, really no definite choice at the moment. I did see obviously Emi Martinez is suspended for the first game week, so I was considering maybe the Aston Villa goalkeeper. Is it Bitos, I think? And just for the 1 week, might be worth having a Villa defender there and stick the goalkeeper in. Depends how Newcastle come out, really. The Isak obviously not playing, and Gordon potentially injured. Yeah, might be a Villa home game. Yeah, could be a clean sheet there maybe. And then De Kalper is there. I think he looked quite exciting in pre-season. So very attacking fullback, scored quite a few goals last season, and got one in pre-season the other day, playing sort of quite high up at the back post there for a cross. But again, that's not really, it's just a fun one to look at for now, I think, rather than having real conviction on that. So yeah, I'll have to have a look through the 4.5 mil defenders before the deadline. And then at the minute I've got Aitner and Reinders in there. I think Wolves could be a nice fixture for City. Wolves certainly don't look ready for this season. I do think the manager did a good job last year in, you know, making them a lot more difficult to play against, but yeah, they haven't really signed anyone. They've lost Semedo, lost Aitner, and obviously they lost Cunha as well, so it's a much weaker team. So I don't think City are going to have much trouble there winning that game. And obviously Aitner against his old club, you know, wouldn't be surprised if he gets in amongst the points there. And then Reinders looked really good in that friendly against Palermo with the 2 goals. Could have had a hat-trick. Just like the way that he was arriving in the box quite late and making those runs. That's something I think Gundogan a couple of seasons ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, where he kept doing that for City and he'd always be there for the cutbacks. So again, there's no real conviction there. It's just a little bit of maybe wait and see, could get lucky on the first day. But again, that's going to be one to sort of, you know, look around the 5.5 million midfielders a bit more. And then sort of the other ideas I've got at the moment is basically Everton defender Tarkowski, maybe. Liverpool defender could be an option as well. So yeah, a little bit of research to do there, but that's sort of the basic sort of price structure anyway. So the plan is I'm going to put out a team selection video later in the week, sort of with a, you know, close to final draft. So if anyone's got any suggestions for the team, more than welcome to leave it in the comments and take a look at those. And yeah, I'll speak to you later in the week. So that's it for this one. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.